Hey everybody, today is March 22nd, 2024, and today we're going to talk about the stock market and where I see the stock market headed in April or next month. Before we begin, please read the disclaimer. You can pause this video as you read it. Okay, so last month we left off, the market was around this area, right? And basically what happened was we had inflation. Inflation basically came down a bit, right? And so things are looking good, but on our most recent inflation CPI report in February, this month, it actually went up a little bit. Now, obviously, we do want to see the CPI inflation data come down towards the Fed's rate of 2%, but basically the Fed also, in their meeting this week, they said that they expect to do a couple cuts this year, right? So most people basically saw that as a bullish, dovish sign because they're basically assuming now that this is probably the peak, right? This is probably the peak, right? So just over 5% is probably the peak. So with that in mind, the market basically rallied. And so we basically have had a really strong rally this entire year. I mean, like, look at just how consistent this rally is, right? If you look at March, we're basically the monthly candle. We're basically about to close 5 green monthly candles in a row. Now, of course, this is very bullish. And you look at the RSI, we're starting to get close to overbought in the monthly term. We already overbought in the weekly and daily. Of course, we are basically just taking a very steady move up, right? Now keep in mind that even though things might be looking good, it is important to keep your eyes out because the market can pull back, right? And that's what we've been looking for, right? We haven't really had a pullback since October last year, but since the data is so strong, right? And the economy is very strong, and there's been a big move in the tech sector off of generative AI, right? So stocks like Nvidia, TSM, and AMD have been rallying, right? So with that optimism and the expectation that the Fed has probably peaked in terms of the federal fund rate, and the fact that the Fed has signaled that they're going to cut a couple times this year, that's basically given more tailwinds for the market to move higher, right? So overall, I'm still pretty bullish on this market, and I haven't shorted or anything or sold any positions, just sort of waiting, right? But even if the market's going up, again, just to reiterate, markets can still pull back, right? And I think that when we see the market pull back eventually to these moving averages, the first one being our 50-day, the silver line, that could be a potentially good buying opportunity, right? We're still technically in the greed, the fear and greed sentiment, right? We're still in the green zone, the greed zone. So there is, I'm still waiting for this to pull back a little bit before I, add to my existing positions. But for now, I'm pretty neutral, just waiting for the market to show some, corrective signals, right? But so let's look at the VIX. The VIX has been coming down a bit, right? In the weekly, we did try to move up a little bit over the last couple months, but this basically just pushed down below the support level. So we closed another week red, and the VIX, of course, has had these wick downs. So sorry, these upper wicks, which means that there's a lot of rejection from volatility to the upside, right? And we just should give benefit of doubt that the VIX will probably continue downwards, right? Which will give, of course, more of a positive catalyst for the markets to go up higher. So really not much to say, right? We are still looking for the inflation data to move down towards 2%, right? That's ultimately the Fed's goal. So we shouldn't get too optimistic, right? The Fed probably won't raise rates, but they can keep rates elevated. And if you think about it, this is actually the best position that the Fed is in because the Fed, one of their main weapons is to lower interest rates when the economy isn't doing good. So if they lower interest rates, if they cut interest rates too soon, that basically takes away their main weapon, right? So that's why the Fed is going to try to keep the rates as high as possible, as long as possible, until things start looking really bad, right? Maybe so we start to see cracks in the economy, or we start to see inflation go down significantly down closer to 2%, right? And then they'll be more comfortable cutting rates. But I don't think we're going to see like a big dramatic cut to like all the way down to 1 or close to 0%, right? Like we saw during COVID. And keep in mind that when rates are cut, as you can see, it tends to foreshadow a recession, right? So these shaded areas are recessions when the Fed starts to cut. So that's another thing to keep in mind, right? It's not like, oh my God, the Fed's going to cut and so we're going to go straight up. But usually the Fed does cut in response to when the data is starting to weaken. So who knows how long they're going to keep it elevated. They did say they're going to cut rates maybe a couple of times this year. So that's why the market rallied, right? But don't let your guard down. The market can whipsaw. The VIX volatility can spike up, right? Especially it gets closer to, the oversold levels, right? So just keep that in mind. Things are looking pretty good. I feel like this market is very people are a little comfortable now, right? We've basically had a straight march up for the past several months since the October lows, and people are getting a little comfortable now. But the market can, whipsaw at any moment, and the volatility can spike. So keep that in mind. I haven't sold any positions. I'm not short anything. Just waiting for the market to finally pull back a little bit. It doesn't have to crash or anything, but at least to the 50-week moving average, right? The first short-term moving average, and then we'll see. But for now, we're just waiting on the data to come out for the next CPI report in April 10th, and hopefully this will come down towards 3.1 or 3.0, closer to our 2% target, right? And that will give more tailwinds. If not, maybe the Fed. I don't necessarily think the Fed will raise rates if it does go up a little bit, but they might keep the rates constant without cutting, right? And keep in mind, there's still room for the fear and greed index to fall down. So just keeping that in mind, I do think that if April CPI data does show that inflation is coming down, I do expect the market to continue going up higher. But I think the market is looking for a reason. The bears are on the lookout to see if they can keep the price down, right? So if the CPI data isn't really good, I can see us moving sideways for a while, maybe coming down to the 50-week moving average, the silver line. But other than that, if the inflation data is cooler than expected, then of course I expect it to go up a little higher, right? But keep in mind as well on the longer time frames, right? We're up five monthly green candles in a row. Weekly, right? It's up going good. We had two red weekly candles, but like I said, this angle is pretty steep. So usually when we have such a steep angle, we tend to have a correction once in a while to pull it back. So it's closer to the mean reversion, right? So look how far away we are. I'll just get a cleaner chart. Away we are from the silver line, which is our short-term weekly moving average, the 50-week moving average, the silver line, right? It's not uncommon for the market to pull back, to get closer, to kind of revert to the mean before it go up higher, right? I'm not saying that's going to happen overnight, but just something to keep in mind, right? A lot of bullish data, but always want to keep our eyes and ears open to react to the market, right? Because the market can change at any time. So just keep that in mind. I'm still cautiously optimistic going forward, but aware of the data as it comes. And we'll definitely update you next month to see where I think May is going to be headed towards, or the market's be headed towards May. And yes. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful, useful, informative, please like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe for updates. I appreciate all your support. Thank you again, and have a great day.